All right, welcome back to the church history study, everybody.
Bienvenidos al estudio de la historia de la iglesia.
Today is taking a step back part 4, and today is finally the last day we're going to be talking about the first century.
Entonces el título es Tomando un paso detrás, la parte número 4, y es el último de esa parte.
It was supposed to take 2 weeks, but it took 4 weeks, but that's okay.
Iba a tomar solo 2 semanas y estamos en la 4, pero está bien.
Who would like to open us up in prayer today?
¿Alguien quiere orar para el día de hoy?
We need to do that quicker on the video. Lord God, please come into this room right now. Just send the Holy Spirit here and just fill us up and just open our ears and eyes just to hear your word and just give us your presence here right now so we walk out of here just fulfilled and ready for the rest of the week. I pray for this. Amen.
Amen. So we've already talked about how early Christianity was spread the gospel to the Greco-Roman world all over.
Ya lo hemos hablado de cómo el cristianismo primitivo de la iglesia primitiva avanzaba el evangelio en todas las partes del mundo.
And when Paul lands in Italy for the first time, there's already believers there, and he's spending a week with them.
Y cuando Pablo llegó en Italia por la primera vez ya había creyentes, entonces él pasaba una semana con gente que ya creía.
What brought those early Christians all over the world? What brought them to Rome?
¿Cómo que llegaba esa creyentes a Roma?
Or any other place for that matter.
O
What
en
took them
otros
there?
lugares. Recuérdate de el estudio de antes.
The diaspora? That's part of it. So the diaspora spread them all over the empire.
La diáspora, que era la gente perseguido y se fueron a todas partes del mundo.
The translation of
The Septuagint,
the Septuagint.
the Greek, Hebrew Bible.
La traducción de la Septuaginta, que era la Biblia griega.
They believed in the same theory that the Greeks had.
Mm-hmm. They started saying Hellenism. You know, these ideas of your philosophers came from our prophets, right?
Entonces esa filosofía de helenismo que también usaba la filosofía para enseñar que eso era de las profetas antiguamente.
Some other things that you guys are missing is the desire to spread the gospel.
Y también el deseo de avanzar el reino de Dios, de compartir el evangelio.
And another thing is their lives. They were merchants, they were traders, they were businessmen.
Que también era su forma de vivir porque eran gente de comercio, entonces se iba a todas partes del mundo para su trabajo también.
You didn't teach us that last one.
No, but I loved your Florida comment. That is brilliant. The fact that the widows.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that is so obvious, but if you don't know it,
Right.
I thought it was brilliant.
That's why there's so many widows. Jerusalem was Florida. When all these Hellenistic Christians came back, they wanted to come back to Rome before they died. They were old. They wanted to go back to the homeland. And women live longer than men, tend to live longer than men. So the men started dying off in Jerusalem, leaving the widows behind.
Que era muy interesante darse cuenta en esa época porque había tanto viuda, porque era como nosotros decimos como Florida, que quería irse a Jerusalén para jubilarse y como que estaba jubilado se murió los hombres antes que las mujeres.
So today I want to tell the rest of the story. I want to fill in the puzzle of the first century, and I am positive that you guys know more about the first century than you ever had before up to this point.
Entonces que vamos a seguir con el primer siglo y estoy seguro que tú ya sabes mucho más del primer siglo de antes.
We also know that the gospel spread through the work of missionaries.
Y sabemos que también avanzaba el evangelio por los misioneros.
So some traditions say that Philip became a missionary in Ethiopia.
Que muchas tradiciones dicen que Felipe era un misionero en Etiopía.
And we already know that Paul and Barnabas set up their missionary shop. Where did they set up?
Y sabemos que Pablo y Bernabé
In
estaban a donde en Antioquia.
So on this board today, so you guys could see, I put these little red fish. where the major centers of Christianity are taking place.
And
So
Antioch was where?
right here
Yeah, I know. Right,
in Syria,
Syria.
in northern Syria, Asia Minor.
Donde está la pece roja que está detrás de mí, se pueden ver los sitios importantes.
Paul and Barnabas, yeah?
Paul and Barnabas, that's where their missionary headquarters were. And then Alexandria is down there where the other fish is.
Pablo y Bernabé estaban en Antioquia y lo que está el otro pez, ¿eso era dónde?
Alexandria.
Alexandria.
And then the third place is in Rome over there.
Y el otro lugar que hay un pez, eso es Roma.
And I'm going to be adding to this later, but these are the three major Christian centers in the world at the end of the first century.
Entonces vamos a añadir a eso, pero él quiere que tú sepas que esos tres lugares son los lugares, las ciudades más importantes en esa época.
And remember last week I said that the Hebrew Christian church in Jerusalem started dying off after 135.
Y recuérdate que la semana pasada estuvimos hablando que la iglesia Hebrew Church, la iglesia hebreica, que empezó a desvanecer en el final del primer siglo.
There's always going to be Christians there, but they're no longer a major Christian center. Does that make sense?
En Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem.
Que en Jerusalén siempre vamos a ver que hay cristianos que viven allí, pero ahora no es un centro cristiano.
So, do you think, I mean, just looking at the fish there, it almost looks kind of critical that God chose the Mediterranean Sea, because it wasn't a proper sea. It's almost like a huge lake. I know it had storms and all this of it, but it's not like the Atlantic Ocean. And the whole thing is around there.
Right.
You know, it's like, this is where it's going to start.
Yep. Well, God used the Roman Empire to spread his gospel.
Que es muy interesante que Dios estaba usando el imperio romano para avanzar a su reino.
And the ribbons represents lines of communication. So Antioch was communicating with Alexandria, Alexandria was communicating with Rome, and Rome was communicating with Antioch, and vice versa. Does that make sense?
Donde está el hilo son líneas de comunicación. Entonces Antioquia estaba hablando con Roma o con Alexandria, así es como líneas de comunicación.
So Paul and Barnabas in the first century are in Antioch. And who was Barnabas' nephew? Do you guys remember?
Recuérdate quién era el sobrino
John Mark.
de Bernabé. Era Juan Marcos.
And so remember that Paul and Barnabas broke up and they split ways. Does anybody remember the reason?
¿Alguien recuerda por qué Pablo y Bernabé se separó y ya no estaba junto en su equipo misionero?
What was the reason,
¿Qué
Gershon?
era la razón por esa discusión?
It's because
I think that Barnabas
they wanted to bring a nephew along.
John Mark.
John Mark, and Paul said no.
But why? Why did Paul say no?
Because he was flaky. Right? Because
He was flaky.
yeah. No, I don't remember.
Que al principio es
You hit the nail on the
empezaron
head,
la
though.
discusión porque Bernabé quería llevar a su sobrino Juan Marcos, pero Pablo no quiso porque él no era un hombre responsable. ¿Por qué? You didn't say the end of it.
So the reason why is because John Mark went with Paul and Barnabas on a missionary trip, and he deserted them there.
Porque Juan Marcos se fue con Pablo y Bernabé una vez por un viaje de misiones,
Would you mind
pero
just
se
telling them
abandonó
to-
a ellos y se fue otra vez a Jerusalén.
Just
Where's that in the Bible?
where is in Antioch?
En Acts.
Oh, in Acts. It's in Acts, yes.
Pero era porque
En
tenía
Hechos.
miedo, ¿no? He was afraid or something.
It doesn't say why. Paul just says he deserted him.
Que solo sabemos que había esa discusión y que Pablo ha dicho que no quiso que él se fue otra vez con ellos porque antes se ha abandonado a ellos. Uno de los
He might have
viajes.
he might have became afraid.
Puede ser que tenía temor o algo.
But anyway, when it came back time again for them, John Mark wanted to go with them again, and Paul said no.
Entonces que llevaba ese tiempo para irse otra vez por un viaje de misiones, pero Pablo dijo que no.
And so what happened then was that Paul and Barnabas split ways.
Entonces, desde ese momento ya no era un equipo de misiones porque se fue a diferentes lugares distintos, Pablo y Bernabé.
And so Barnabas and John Mark then went and evangelized Cyrus, and Paul then went to other places with Luke and Timothy and Titus.
Entonces Pablo se fue con Timoteo y Tito, y Bernabé se fue con su sobrino, Juan Marcos, a Cipro, iglesia. Pero los dos estaban haciendo todavía misiones.
So Barnabas and John Mark went to Cyprus.
Entonces Bernabé y Juan Marcos se fueron a Cipro. Chipre.
And so Apollos is also mentioned in the New Testament. He went to Ephesus and Corinth.
Y Apolo también se fue a Efeseo y Corintio.
This was the route. It's a route. You go that way and we'll go this way.
Yeah.
They did the hard road and the easy road. Yeah?
Paul pretty much went the hard way.
We had a preaching that Paul went the hard way and
Yeah.
Barnabas
And
seems
the
to
other
go
two went
and
on
then
a
we
holiday.
don't hear
Yeah.
anything. We
I
don't
think-
hear anything else of Barnabas after.
If you look
that.
at Paul's life and how many beatings and how much torture he went through, I think it's possible that John Mark was afraid.
Yeah.
Que puede
Okay.
ser que la idea de Ada era correcta.
Do you blame
que
him?
Juan Marcos tenía
If Paul asked you to go to
de
missionary
estar
journey
con
with him,
Pablo,
you want to go?
Porque Pablo
I'd have to think
sufrió
hard
mucha
about that.
persecución.
So, but the gospel was spread primarily through countless of missionaries, through businessmen, tradesmen, and merchants.
Entonces avanzó el evangelio por los de comercio, pero también los que eran misioneros.
And a lot of these guys, they died for their faith.
Y muchos de ellos murieron por su fe.
And normally when Paul first goes to any town he went to, where did he go first?
Y normalmente cuando Pablo se fue
What's the first place he went to
a
preach?
una ciudad nueva, siempre se fue a un lugar en el principio para predicar ese lugar que era
He went
el
to the
templo,
synagogue.
la sinagoga.
And so Paul didn't believe he was preaching a new religion.
Entonces Pablo no creía que era una religión nueva.
Paul was still a Jew. He believed he was preaching the fulfillment of Judaism through
Pablo
Jesus
era
Christ.
judío y se creía que eso era la complexión del judaísmo de recibir el Mesías.
But the difference now is the time and the door had been opened to the world, to the nations, to the Gentiles.
Y la diferencia ahora es que la puerta ha sido abierta a los gentiles.
And we saw in our study in Revelations how eventually those Christians got kicked out of their synagogues. Remember that?
Y eventualmente lo hemos visto en el estudio de Apocalipsis que los cristianos ya se fueron echados fuera de la sinagoga.
So once they got kicked out, they began meeting in people's homes and for communion services and different types of services in the homes.
Entonces, después de haber sido echado fuera de la sinagoga, tenía que reunir en la casa de la gente para reunirse y tener la Santa Cena.
And so as we get out of the first century and get towards the second century, we see that shift from Jews to a Gentile church.
Entonces, saliendo del primer siglo hasta el segundo siglo, podríamos ver ese cambio desde el templo a la sinagoga de cristianismo hasta una iglesia cristiana.
And so something interesting happens. So in Acts, when somebody becomes a Christian, how long do they wait to be baptized normally?
Entonces, algo interesante en el libro de Hechos, cuando alguien creía en el Señor, ¿cuánto tiempo duraba hasta que se fueron
In Acts,
bautizados?
when we read about people
En Hechos,
converting to
cuando se
Christianity,
convirtió alguien,
Straight away.
inmediatamente se fueron bautizados.
straight away, they get baptized straight away.
On the spot.
You're talking baptized with water.
Yes.
Sí.
On the spot.
And the reason why is because they were Jews.
Y la razón porque eran judíos.
They knew their Hebrew Bible.
Y sabía su Biblia hebraica.
They get buried straight away.
But something happened in the first century
Do you want to say why that is? Because when you convert,
because they didn't believe they were entering into a new religion. They didn't need a lot of training. They just believed Jesus was the Messiah. And that was good enough.
and so, but it's also because they believed that if you converted as you were older, you were baptized.
No, you're going in a kind of a different direction where I'm going right now.
Okay, but knowing the Hebrew Bible point was that they just needed to be baptized.
Right, they got baptized right away. Boom, baptized.
Solo tenía que
Believe,
ser
baptized.
bautizado y ya eran creyentes.
But in the first century, as more and more Gentiles were added, something took place. The apostles realized that, and the church leaders realized that these Gentiles knew nothing about Judaism.
Entonces,
Nothing.
después del primer siglo, que cuando en el final de eso, cuando entraban muchos gentiles, que ellos no entendían bien judaísmo, entonces tenía que enseñarle más.
And so, in order to educate these early Gentile converts in Judaism and the Christian faith, they started the catechumenate.
Entonces, para hacer una educación a la gente gentile en esa idea de judaísmo, empezaron el catecumenado.
And so, these guys were called the catechumens.
Entonces se
Catechu-
llamaban los
catechumens.
catecumenos or catechumens.
Catechumens. And so, basically, this was just somebody that's made a profession of faith, but before they could be baptized, they had to learn a little bit about the Christianity.
Entonces era como confirmación. Entonces era gente que sabía que quería ser creyente, pero tenía que aprender algo antes que fueron bautizados.
They have to go to catechesis.
Yes, more or less. It was basically Sunday school.
Mismo nombre.
And so the church service in the beginning was just a communion service, right?
Entonces en el principio era solamente un culto de comunidad.
Communion, Eucharist.
De la Santa Cena.
I was just going to ask, what exactly did they learn here?
These are the Gentiles that learned about the Jewish and Christian faith, because they're pagan. They don't know anything about the faith.
Okay, so they learn.
So they get converted,
Uh-huh.
and then they become a catechumen.
So it's kind of like confirmation classes is what we call them, or they call it
Catechesis.
Uh-huh.
We still.
So as far as Judaism, they learn. It's like a.
It's like
Well,
Well, all they had was the Jewish Bible. They were taught Scripture.
So okay.
They were taught Scripture.
So, but not Jewish. Not so much like the Jewish customs.
Well,
traditions.
the Christianity was just a Jewish sect at that time.
Yeah.
It was like Sunday school.
hmm
It's very like
Que era como
catechism.
una
Yeah,
escuela
yeah.
dominical.
And so what happened is as more Gentiles joined the church, they didn't have just a communion service on Sunday anymore. They split it into two parts.
Entonces, como que llegaban más gentiles, no tenía solamente un tiempo de Santa Cena, que ahora lo ha dividido en los grupos, y los judíos en parte, los gentiles en otro.
No, they were all together.
Oh, so what was the division?
You're still getting ahead of me. So the first
Que
part
todo
of the
estaba
church
junto.
service was the service of the word is what they called it. And this is when everybody came together for like Sunday school. They learned about Scripture. They taught Scripture. All the Christians came together.
Perdón, que el culto estaba dividido, todo estaba junto, pero el culto mismo estaba dividido, entonces era como la escuela dominical y el culto.
So even the people who weren't catechumens went to this, and they continued to learn Scripture. This was the table, the service of the word.
Hasta los que no fueron catecúmenos también se fueron a esa escuela de dominical.
And then, after they were done with the table of the word, they dismissed the catechumens, and then the only people that were left were then the baptized, and they had the service of the table, which is where they participated in communion.
Entonces, después de tener el tiempo de la escuela dominical, los catecúmenos se fueron y solo fueron los que fueron bautizados para tomar la Santa Cena.
And we'll talk a little bit later on about the worship practice of the early church, but for right now, I just wanted you guys to see that it was just the communion service, and then once the Gentiles came, they felt like, oh, we need to start having some kind of education here. They had the catechumen service, the service of the word, and then the service of the table.
Entonces lo importante es saber que antes tomaba la Santa Cena todo junto, pero después que vinieron los gentiles le hacía falta tener más educación.
So you might have any questions over that before we go on to the next thing?
Preguntas.
I just have one thing. Is there in the world any other, let's just call Christianity, Judaism a philosophy, is there any other thing in life that has been abused as much as this?
No.
Money, economics, politics.
I don't think so.
This is for thousands of years. This has been abused appallingly.
I think the reason why is because of Satan and his just being completely against everything
Just smashing it,
God,
everything.
you know. Yeah.
Really?
So by abuse you mean like poorly interpreted?
Yeah.
Well, not just the splits and the this and the, I've read splits today in churches on Facebook. It kind of never ends.
But-
we take a faith and splinter.
Entonces está hablando de como que la fe o cristianismo ha sido abusado, ha dicho, pero es como mal interpretado tantas veces. Y
At this
se
time,
pregunta si hay otra cosa que ha sido mal interpretado tanto como cristianismo.
And is there I can't think of anything else that has been so destroyed.
That's true. The church is very splintered right now. But right here in the first century, the church is one, which means ecumenical, Catholic, which means universal, Orthodox.
So it's already this. It's already
Yes,
this.
it's already this. Orthodox, which means right beliefs.
It's crazy, no?
I mean, it wasn't called this.
One? Who is one? One is
Ecumenical. There's
Entonces,
only one church right now.
En el primer
It's
siglo
already split.
podríamos ver
No,
que hay solo una
no split.
iglesia. Ecuménico significa una iglesia, que todo está junto. Y que también católico no es católico que pensamos nosotros. Católico significa una iglesia universal. Y ortodoxo, que es decir,
Right
tiene
beliefs.
la doctrina correcta.
Right now, there is no splits. There is some sects that have become kind of cultish, that have broken away from this, but there is only one church at this
En
point.
el final
At this
del primer
point-
siglo
In history, in the
todavía
first
hay solo
century.
In this
una
time.
Right.
iglesia.
Okay.
Una iglesia.
And it's just the church.
Yeah, but today we still have more or less the same because we in the Catholic Church they do have a catechumenado, no?
Mhm.
That is the catechesis,
Mm-hmm.
and the kids cannot have the communion until they know everything about God and Jesus when they are 12.
Yeah.
Then it's more or less
Yeah,
the
so
same.
the catechumen comes from the
I think
catechumenate.
the name specifically in Spanish comes from that.
It means to teach.
It's
Que
what
el nombre-
Christian said. You said a couple of weeks ago where the Mormons are, the blinking evangelicals couldn't even decide on who would take that building.
In the city of El Puerto de Santa Maria, they said over at the Parque Empresario that they would give land. So they offered land to nonprofits, and the Jehovah's Witnesses have their ward over there, and the Mormons have it. They got that land for free from the city. But the evangelicals couldn't decide who would run the church, so they didn't get any land.
But
That's just terrible. It's
That's
terrible.
just-
that's the situation of the church today. But that's not the situation of the church here. The church is one. There's
Esa
only one
es la
church.
situación del
Still
día
one.
de hoy, que no se pueden estar en acuerdo, pero estamos en el primer siglo aquí y casi todos están en acuerdo.
There were some cults, but the church was one.
Había
Okay,
sectas,
alright,
pero la iglesia fue solo una.
So, have you guys ever seen those TV shows, Where Are They Now, where they take the child actors and they show you their lives now?
¿Tú has visto esa de tele cuando salen los niños que eran actrices o actores de niños y tú puedes ver cómo crezca y dónde están en su vida en el día de hoy.
I want to do that with a few of the more famous apostles and some of their stories.
Quiero hacer eso en el día de hoy con algunos de los discípulos y sus historias.
So we know that both James were killed off very early.
Sabemos que los dos Santiago se fueron matados muy precipitado.
Go ahead.
I have a question on that because we obviously watched that on the video.
Uh-huh.
You said that James, the brother of Jesus, was killed by the high priest?
The Jewish high priest.
But even though Jesus wasn't killed by the Jews, by the priest, he got sent to the Romans.
Right.
But yet they killed James.
Caused a storm in Jerusalem too.
Yeah, because of what Carrie's saying is because the Jews sent him to the Romans because they weren't allowed to kill him.
They're not allowed to kill for a reason. You said this.
Because only Rome could execute.
No, but the Jews went
I thought they could execute for one thing, no?
And so in this situation, that's why it caused a problem, you're saying?
Well, it caused a problem because everybody liked James, and it caused a riot. There was a riot in Jerusalem when James got killed by Jews and Christians.
Que hablando de Jesús, como que los judíos no podían matarle, entonces le envió a los romanos, porque para ellos no podían matar a la gente por su ley. Entonces, pero el obispo, que era Santiago, el hermano de Jesús, sí se fue matado por el sacerdote alto.
And so Acts leaves off, Luke leaves Acts with Paul in prison in Rome.
Entonces, el final de Hechos es cuando Pablo fue detenido en Roma.
So, spoiler alert, most of the apostles are martyred.
Entonces, nosotros decimos spoiler alert, es como decir que tú vas a saber lo que sucede y casi todos los apóstoles están matados por su fe.
All of them except for possibly John, who died of old age.
Todos excepto a
What's that?
Juan. Que Juan murió de
Judas hanged himself.
De viejez.
¿Quién murió de viejo?
Juan.
¿A Juan?
So both Peter and Paul died in Rome after the fire of 64. They probably died around the years before the year 68, because Nero
Entonces,
died in the year 68.
Antes del año 68 murieron Pedro y Pablo.
So Paul was killed by the sword
Pablo se fue matado por la espada
because he was a Roman citizen,
porque él era ciudadano romano,
and Peter was hung upside down
y
on a
Pedro
cross.
fue crucificado, pero a través con su cabeza donde
Boca abajo.
los pies. Ajá.
And there are some traditions that says Paul made it to Spain before he died, but that's probably not trustworthy. We don't know. We don't know for sure.
Hay gente que piensa que Pablo sí se fue a España antes que murió, pero eso es solo tradición, no sabemos.
John was, some traditions say John was boiled in a pot of oil. Some say he survived.
Hay tradiciones que dice que Juan fue hervido por una olla de aceite y sobrevivió.
And some say he died on the island of Patmos, and some say he died in Ephesus.
Y alguna persona dice que Juan murió en Patmos, donde fue detenido, y otra persona dicen que fue liberado de Patmos y murió en Éfeso.
And the reason why is because there were two Johns in Asia Minor who were very important to the church. One was the apostle, one was an elder at the same time.
Y por la confusa era porque había dos Juan, uno que era Juan el apóstol y otro que era Juan un anciano que también era importante en la historia.
So we don't always know which John the writings are referring to.
Entonces la gente que estaba escribiendo todo muchas veces no sabemos cuál Juan era describiéndose.
And then something happens in the 2nd century that makes it almost impossible for us to know what happened to the other apostles.
Y algo sucedió en el segundo siglo y eso lo que sucedió nos impacta saber qué ha pasado con los apóstoles.
All of the big churches started claiming apostolic origin for their church.
Que todas las iglesias empezó a decir que su iglesia fue fundada por apóstoles.
And it would be hard to believe that all those churches were true, that those apostles started all those churches.
Pero sería difícil que toda esa iglesia serían fundadas por medio de apóstoles.
So Rome began claiming that Paul and Peter founded their church, which is probably true.
En Roma dice que era Pablo y Pedro que se fundó su iglesia y eso probablemente es correcta.
And also Antioch claimed Paul and Peter, which we both know that Peter and Paul were in Antioch.
Y Antioquia también dice que fue Pablo y Pedro que se fundó a su iglesia y sabemos que los dos se fueron a Antioquia.
That's close to idol worship.
We're getting that way. We're not there yet. And so in Constantinople, hundreds of years later, they claimed that Philip started their church.
¿Cómo es? Constantinopolia. Es igual.
Constantinopla.
Ajá.
Wow, ya se
Que
dice
ahora
como
es en esa época era bizantín. Bizantín.
What's that?
Que entonces,
Seven
who
churches
found that
and-
church? Sorry.
No, all the churches.
Who found the church in Constantinople? Felipe, que fundó la iglesia ahí.
So then, hundreds of years later, Spain claimed that Paul and James founded their church.
100 años detrás de todo eso, dice España que Pablo y Santiago fundó la iglesia en España.
So the first time that that's mentioned is hundreds of years later, after the apostles
Cientos
were dead.
años detrás de la
I'm
muerte
sorry,
de
is that in
Pablo.
relation to Catholicism?
Not yet.
No, yeah.
Yeah. And so, according to Spanish tradition, James reached Galicia and was encouraged by the Virgin Mary on this trip.
Entonces la tradición de España dice que Santiago se llegó a Galicia y la Virgen María le animó ahí en Santiago.
So the Virgin Mary appeared to
Or
James
in
on a
Galicia.
pillar and encoaged him, supposedly. But this showed up
Entonces,
hundreds of years later, so this story is almost certainly not true.
La tradición o leyenda básicamente es que llegó a Santiago y la Virgen María se apareció a él para animarle.
Out of James' brother Jesus or James the Apostle?
No,
Que era
Catholic
Santiago,
will
el
never-
hermano de Jesús, o
I
Santiago.
can't remember. I think it's
El
Jesus, the
apóstol.
brother of Jesus.
Brother of Jesus.
But
Or
the
the apostle.
Catholic will never say Jesus, the brother of Jesus.
No,
Sorry,
James.
James, the brother of Jesus.
No, they say that he was somebody
El
different.
apóstol.
Yeah, because Jesus didn't have
The
brothers.
apostle, James the Apostle.
Sí, sí, sí.
Okay, that's true.
Eso es una herejía.
Yeah.
Not his brother.
And burn in fire.
And so this is the tradition of Virgin de Pilar.
Entonces
Virgen
esa
de
es la
Pilar.
tradición de Virgen de Pilar.
But eventually we know that James is killed in Jerusalem.
Pero sabemos que Santiago fue matado en Jerusalén.
By Herod the Great, so yes, this is the
De
apostle.
Herodes el Magno, o Herodes Magno.
El grande.
And then supposedly his followers took his remains back to James, where he's supposedly buried in Spain today.
Y dice la tradición que llevó el cuerpo de Santiago a España para enterrárselo aquí.
And when the Spanish were fighting the Moors, Santiago became the battle cry of the Spanish.
Y cuando los españoles estaban luchando contra los moros, ellos usaban Santiago como su grito de la lucha.
His bones are probably in Gibraltar.
No. En Santiago de Compostela.
And so every year there's the pilgrimage of Compostela. So people take the pilgrimage to Compostela.
Entonces
Tu
esa
Santiago de Compostela.
Santiago
peregrino
walk
dice,
is
¿no?
from this.
Es Santiago
Yeah.
Santiago
De Compostela.
Ajá, y eso lo hacen todos los años.
Yeah,
The-
but even Christian and non-Christians do
Yeah.
that work.
Yeah, everybody does.
Porque
But the
es muy
truth is
divertido
James
con el
probably never gave.
pasaporte.
The truth is James probably never gave Spain much thought.
Pero la verdad es que Santiago por lo mejor ni pensaba en España.
But when these legends about James appeared, he became a very important figure for the church.
Pero la leyenda de eso de
Santo
Santiago
Malta?
era
Rita?
como Santiago
What's
fue
that?
lo más
Who's Santo
importante
Malta?
apóstol de España.
Paul.
Paul. And oil.
No, his ship. His ship.
Oh yeah.
His ship.
Paul sank a
Near
lot.
water, wasn't it? Paul sank a lot.
So, second century tradition, so very early, says that Thomas founded a church in India.
El segundo siglo dice que Tomás fundó una iglesia en India.
But I believe there's some truth to this story, but it's also packed full of legend.
Yo creo que hay un parte de verdad en esa historia, pero también está mucho leyenda o tradición que puede ser que no es
So there's a
verdadero.
king in India history named Gondophares.
Entonces hay un rey que estaba en el tiempo en India que se llama el Gondophares.
For years, archaeologists made fun of this tradition because there was no record of this king anywhere.
Los arqueólogos siempre se ha burlado de ese rey porque no había algo de su historia.
But then the archaeologists dug up evidence that there was a real king by this name in
Pero
India.
una vez ya se
Yeah.
encontró la evidencia, la prueba que era un rey que se llamaba Gondophares.
And so supposedly the legend says that the the king ordered Thomas to build a palace for him.
Entonces la leyenda dice que el rey ordenó a Tomás para construir un palacio para él.
Gondophares.
Gondophares.
And so what happened is that Thomas, we all know he's not much of an architect.
Sabemos que Tomás probablemente no era arquitecto.
The king found out that he was giving all the money for the project to the poor.
Entonces dice que el rey se ha enterado que Tomás estaba dando todo el dinero por el proyecto del palacio a los pobres.
This is legend.
Eso es leyenda.
And so, supposedly the king's dead brother came to him in a vision, in a dream, and said, "Hey, I've seen the heavenly palace that Thomas has built through the giving of this money to the poor."
Entonces en la historia el hermano del rey vino en uno de sus sueños diciendo, yo he visto el palacio que Tomás está construyendo para ti.
And the king was so moved by this that he converted, and there was a church established there.
Que el rey fue tan impactado por las noticias de, what is this, like an imaginary
heavenly.
palace or Christian
heavenly.
palace or?
One of his palace that we wanted him to build.
Kristen, what you missed is that it's his heavenly palace.
Oh,
because of
okay,
giving
era
money to
un
the poor.
palacio celestial.
Yeah.
Porque ha dado todo el dinero a los pobres, entonces era un palacio sobrenatural que Tomás ha construido en los cielos.
And they also
y por medio
discovered-
de esa noticia, el rey se convirtió y era creyente.
And archaeologists also discovered that this king's brother also existed.
Y también dice de la historia que el hermano or is his brother or stepbrother?
His brother.
You said stepbrother earlier.
I don't think I ever said stepbrother.
She said brother.
Okay, so
El
anyway,
hermano también existía en la historia.
it may or may not be true. We don't know.
Correctamente.
But what we do know is this. This story came from the 2nd century. And by the 2nd century, there was an established church in India who was claiming that Thomas was their founder.
Entonces lo que
So
sabemos
Somebody went there.
verdaderamente es que al final del segundo siglo sí había una iglesia cristiana y que fue fundado por Tomás.
And so very early. So it is very possible that Thomas did go there. Because by the 2nd century, they're claiming that Thomas founded their church.
Entonces porque había la iglesia, es muy posible
And your
que era
proof of this
fundado
church
por
is what
Tomás.
reference.
Just that there is the church.
There is reference that Thomas went there.
If it's called there's a writing, I forget what the writing's called. Something about Thomas. I'll look it up and I'll get it back to you. And then, but the writing's probably full of legend. But it was written by this. It was written by the
You
church.
said someone went.
Yeah, somebody went there. So it was written by this. The legend was written by this church in the 2nd century.
La leyenda fue escrito por esa iglesia. Sabemos que la iglesia sí existía, pero la leyenda que fue fundada por Tomás existía por esa iglesia.
So, it's hard to know what really happened to the apostles. A lot of this is mixed in legend. A lot of the records have been lost.
Porque hay la leyenda y también hay la historia, entonces mucho de eso se han sido mezclados.
The rest of the story goes that Thomas went to other parts of India started more churches, and then was martyred there.
Y dice en la resta de la historia de la vida de Tomás que él fue a diferentes lugares, fundó otra iglesia y fue matado también por su fe.
So next I want to talk about Nero and persecution of the Christians under Nero.
Entonces, hablando de la persecución de Nero en el tiempo de Roma.
Nero became emperor in 54 AD.
Nero era importante en what did you say?
Emperor.
54, 54.
He became emperor.
Nerón.
What did you say?
Nero became emperor in 54 AD.
No, que fue emperador
But we
en
think he killed
54.
Paul, yeah?
No, he wasn't
Hang on,
important.
we'll get
I heard he was important. Bueno, emperador y importante en 54.
My wife is adding a lot to this story today. So in the beginning, he was a reasonable man, a reasonable emperor. People liked him in the beginning.
En el principio dice que era un emperador básicamente bueno.
But eventually he became power hungry and lusted for pleasure.
Entonces, al final tenía eso de poder, que quería más poder.
And within just 10 years, all the people despised him.
Y después de 10 años la gente le odiaba.
And then a rumor started circulating in Rome that Nero was crazy.
Y había un rumor o una idea que Nero tal vez era loco.
So this is the atmosphere of Rome when in 64 AD a huge fire broke out.
Entonces eso es como está el ambiente en Roma en 64 cuando empezó un fuego encendió por toda la ciudad.
Nero said he was supposedly in his palace in Antium, and when he heard about the fire, he ran to Rome.
Dice Nero que estaba en su palacio en Antium, que era Anzio, en Italia, y cuando escuchó de el fuego se fue corriéndose hasta Roma.
And it is true that during the fire he did open up a lot of public places to the homeless.
Y es verdad que durante el tiempo del incendio grande que también abrió algunos lugares para los que fueron sin techo después del fuego.
And so eventually, though, the people began suspecting that it was Nero that started the
Pero
fire.
eventualmente la gente sospechaba que era Nero que empezó el incendio.
The
But
fire.
he was not on the place. He was in
He
Rome.
claimed he was not.
Él decía que no estaba en Roma, que estaba en Anzio.
The fire lasted for a week.
Y el fuego duraba una semana.
10 of the 14 sections of Rome were completely destroyed.
10 de las 14 barriadas de Roma fue completamente destruida.
And then a rumor began spreading that Nero destroyed Rome because he wanted to rebuild it the way he wanted it to be.
Entonces la gente decía que Nero destruyó a Roma porque quería construir a Roma en su forma.
And then one of the historians of Rome, his name is Tacitus, he didn't believe that these rumors were true. He reported them, but he believed the fire was started in an oil warehouse.
Era un historia que ha dicho que no era Nero que empezó el fuego, que él pensó que empezó el incendio de fuego era una fábrica de aceite.
And so nobody really knows where the fire started.
Entonces nadie sabe verdaderamente a dónde empezó el incendio de fuego.
But before long, more and more people were blaming Nero, and all of Rome was pointing their finger at him.
Pero había mucha gente que estaba echándose la culpa a Nero.
And in two of the areas that were not destroyed by the fire is where a lot of the Jews and the Christians lived.
Y dos de las variadas que no fueron destruidas por el fuego es donde vivían muchos de los cristianos y judíos.
And probably because Nero felt like he needed a scapegoat, he blamed the fire on the Christians.
Y probablemente porque Nero necesitaba a alguien, decimos nosotros una cabra para echarse la culpa, ha dicho que eran los cristianos que encendió el fuego.
Un chivo expiatorio.
Un chivo expiatorio.
And so Nero then ordered the Christians to be rounded up and arrested for arson.
Entonces Nero echaba la culpa por los cristianos y ha dicho para detenerse todos los cristianos para matar a ellos por el fuego.
And actually, the citizens didn't mind too much because by this time, the Christians were already viewed as haters of mankind and atheists.
Y muchos de los ciudadanos no importaba porque ellos ya estaban como, esos cristianos son como ateos y son como lo que odian humanidad, son muy raros.
And the reason why is because they wouldn't participate in the theater or the military, they wouldn't read the literature, they wouldn't play the sports.
Y la razón era porque ellos no participaban en la cultura, no participaban en las cosas sociales, ni en el teatro, ni en el militar, porque toda esa cosa era pagano.
All this was mixed with pagan worship.
Entonces, y también era adoración pagana, entonces ellos no participaban.
And so the Christians felt like they needed to remain pure, so they didn't participate in these things. And all the people just saw them as antisocial.
Entonces, para mantener
And
su
atheists.
pareja, no participaba en esas cosas de la cultura, entonces la gente pensaba que eran gente antisociales.
Did the Jews participate in this?
No, they didn't get the blame. The Jews were not as hated as the Christians.
Maybe because they'd been around for so
Everybody
que,
knew,
que no echaba tanto la culpa por los judíos, solo los cristianos.
because by the time of Nero, it was starting to look more like a new religion. And everybody knew about the Jews. Yeah, they worship one God. But these Christians, they're weird.
Yeah, but also the Jews have a lot of power and money, and they lend a lot of money to the people there.
But the arresting the Christians amused the people in Rome. It actually gained him some popularity.
Entonces, Nero, porque ha detenido a todos los cristianos, you mean amused because they threw them into places.
Hang on, I'm gonna...
Que eso fue como atravesar a la gente, como que la gente estaban felices de tener tantas personas detenidas.
And so he dressed some up like he dressed some in animal furs and he had them killed with dogs.
Ha puesto a algunos de los cristianos en ¿cómo se dice eso?
Furs.
El velo de animales y se fueron matados por perros salvajes.
And then some were crucified.
Y también algunos de ellos fueron crucificados.
And then some he uses as tiki candles, basically. He lit his gardens at night with their bodies, and he would invite people into the gardens. And the Christians would be up there burning, and then they would stroll through the gardens.
Y algunos de ellos fueron como él dice, vela de tiki, pero vivo. Estaban vivos y encendidos por fuego en la jardín de él, y se pasaba la gente en esa jardín.
And then others were sent to the Circus Maximus to be destroyed by the wild beasts.
Y otros se fueron al circo máximo fue destruida o matado por toda la bestia
And while that
salvaje.
was going on, while that was going on, the Emperor Nero was riding around in his little horse chariot dressed up as a charioteer while all these Christians were being killed by the wild beasts.
Mientras que todo en el circo máximo, cuando ellos se fueron matados, Nero, el emperador, también se fue como la arruga a través de ellos, gritando cosas.
And somewhere in the mix, Peter and Paul were among those who were martyred there.
Y en esa mezcla, Pablo y Pedro también fueron crucificados o matados en ese tiempo.
And even though this was severely cruel, this persecution was isolated to the Christians in Rome.
Aunque era tan horrible, eso fue un evento isolado a los cristianos en Roma.
And so Christians were initially charged with arson, and then as time went on in Rome, they just started getting charged for being Christian.
En el principio era que fueron detenidos por el fuego, pero ya pasando el tiempo fueron detenidos solo de ser cristianos.
And then in 68 AD, Nero was deposed by the Roman Senate.
En 68, Nero fue deposado.
Deposed.
Despatriado.
Ajá, por los
Dismissed.
la
The Roman
corte,
Senate.
la corte romana.
And so the persecution stopped for a time.
Entonces la persecución fue parada por un tiempo
Nero killed himself.
y Nero cometió suicidio.
And the reason why the persecution stopped is because in 68 there were 4 emperors battling for power. Rome was in a mess.
Entonces en what year, sorry?
69.
69, Roma ya fue como horrible porque había 4 emperadores que estaban intentando ser emperador. Entonces estaban luchando entre sí mismos.
But Vespasian eventually gained control of as emperor, and then his son Titus until the year 81.
So
Y
first it was
Vespasiano entonces consiguió
Vespasian.
el poder y él tenía el poder de 69 a 79 y después su hijo Tito de 79 a 81.
And pretty much the Christians were ignored by these 2 emperors.
Y estos 2 emperadores no importaban mucho a los cristianos, ignoraba a ellos.
Who was the emperor that came after Titus?
¿Quién fue el emperador después de Tito?
Same emperor as in Revelation.
Que está en Apocalipsis, que no era bueno,
Domitian.
era Domiciano.
So we're going to talk about Domitian next week.
Que vamos a hablar de Domiciano, el emperador Domiciano, la semana que viene.
Who's got questions over anything we talked about today?
¿Alguien tiene preguntas?
I think it was quite interesting. I know quite a lot about the Roman Empire. I've read a lot about it. And I think it's quite interesting that it collapsed in the 1st century. It's almost like God used it and then destroyed it, because it was the most civilized thing ever to hit the planet. And probably still is in some ways. But God just destroyed it by these emperors. Caligula.
It was a slaughterhouse for a while. They were just fighting for power. The emperors, if you look at the line of the emperors, they never last very long.
But if you match that God needed the roads and all the rest, all the good things, he then destroyed it. So it was finished. The Roman Empire was finished by the end of the 1st century.
Well, it was actually around the year 400.
But in terms of these,
Oh,
Caesar,
these kind,
and
yes.
Nero,
That no more would
have the
an
big
emperor
leader.
for a really long period of time. They killed each other off. There was battles. Yeah.
Que en el Imperio Romano los emperadores no tenían un tiempo muy largo porque siempre fueron matados por otro emperador. Por un tiempo era como así.
So here's your questions for your group session. So, what would your life be like if you lived in a place like Rome during the time of Nero?
¿Cómo sería tu vida si vivieras en esa época de Roma, en el tiempo de Nero?
And then after reading Revelation 1:9 again, today we live in a world more hostile to Christianity than in all former centuries combined. How can we be a brother and a partner to those believers suffering persecution and martyrdom?
Entonces se pueden leer Apocalipsis 1:9 y habla también de en el día de hoy hay más persecución y el mundo es más hostil contra los cristianos que en todos los siglos combinados, dice. Entonces, ¿cómo nosotros podríamos ser un hermano a los que están perseguidos y matados por su fe?
And what were your biggest insights gained from our 4 weeks of study in the 1st century?
Entonces, ¿qué son tus percepciones de los 4 semanas que lo hemos pasado del primer siglo? ¿O qué has aprendido en ese tiempo?
All right, we'll see you next week.
Entonces, vamos a verte la semana que viene.
All right.